You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Well, welcome back, world. Here we are.
Here we are, Jack.
Upstream with Cashel and Edge. You providing the edge to our show.
We got plenty of edge for you.
And today we will, actually. You know, about a year ago, we did a show on bread and circuses, but we were naifs at that time. We did not know how the full spectacle of bread and circuses can impact a whole community. And
we're at ground zero of bread and circuses, aren't we? I mean, that's where we found ourselves at.
This past month, past few weeks. As you see, I'm wearing just a show.
That's America's team, baby.
That's what Bob Costa said.
Yeah,
which made me want to take the jacket off.
Right. Bob Costa, what a maroon.
He's about 90 years old now. I mean, he's like mastered the art of plastic surgery. And he was never very good, but he was like an impish little cute guy, you know, who's lived past his time. But, you know, and we're broadcasting from Kansas City, America's. I'm a fair weather fan. I have a jacket, but I don't lose sleep over games. If there's a Purdue basketball game on at the same time, I'll watch the Purdue game.
Well, it was too cold for golf on Super Bowl, so this was the first time I've actually watched it end to end.
Yeah.
Because a couple of good buddies of mine invited me over, and they're excellent cooks and have one of the coolest bars I've ever seen in their house. I went over there.
Yeah, why not? I stay home because that way I can choose to watch or not watch. I watch just about all of it. But this whole Super Bowl season, even though the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, which is, you know, from the town's perspective, good, and yet there were all these bizarre incidents revolving around the whole Chiefs process, right?
Oh, I'll say. Yeah, this is a weird one.
Starting out with 3 guys freezing to death in their friend's backyard.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I think it was the last Sunday of the regular season, and the ground was snow covered, but it wasn't as cold as it was the opening game when it was 7 below here in Kansas City. Global warming being the fickle thing that it is, right? So we have 3 guys freeze to death.
That was the division game, I think.
I think it was the weekend before that.
Was okay.
Because I had to look that up. It cast a pall. Well, because see, on the division game, the first game, which was played in Kansas City, they played Miami. And the game temperature, not wind chill index, a bogus thing that is, but the actual game time kickoff temperature was 7 below zero. So freezing to death. I mean, half the people in the stands might have frozen to death. But these 3 guys, and then it was a mystery as to how they died. You know, you didn't have to be a great, Sherlock Holmes to get to the bottom line finally, which was some sort of bad drug thing. We haven't heard much about them.
Nope.
Because they've been pushed out of the news by our most recent spectacle, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs parade, which was on the Wednesday, whatever date that was. And
Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday. Right? They fell on the same day as the Chiefs parade.
That was a disharmonic convergence.
Totally. And so the Chiefs Super Bowl victory will be forever marred by this incident. And yet there was
excuse me,
so much you could tell. I mean, did you watch the parade at all on TV? Or?
No. Sorry.
So you weren't tempted.
I inhaled that.
You weren't tempted to go down there and cheer your Chiefs on, right?
Jack, I don't do crowds.
Yeah.
I don't do crowds.
Well, you were well advised.
I don't think anybody should anymore, ever.
You know, there are places you shouldn't be.
I mean, unless it's like a revolution or something.
Yeah.
Don't bother.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are risks involved, obviously, as we found out. Up until the moment of the shooting, which occurred just as the ceremonies were ending, and right under and next to the grandstand in front of Union Station, We already have one Union Station massacre, which occurred in 1933, and was, a big shootout between the FBI and gangsters and whatnot.
My dad was an expert on that subject.
Yeah, 5 people were killed, I believe.
He wrote a book on it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating story.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of interesting characters involved.
He uncovered a lot of bad FBI stuff.
Yeah. And Pretty Boy Floyd was there and other people. But it happened at that same place. The refurbished Union Station, which is not really used as a train station, but for bread and circuses.
Right.
A very expensive bread and circuses venue. And a likely place to have the Chiefs parade. Had there not been a shooting, the Chiefs parade would have been known for the utterly loutish behavior of several of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Most notably and prominently, the best-known football player in the world. And that's not Patrick Mahomes, our quarterback. It's Travis Kelce, the beau of Taylor Swift.
And a Pfizer spokesman.
And Pfizer spokesman, right. And Bud Light spokesman, right.
Picking some winners there.
And their behavior on that, especially, I didn't watch a lot of it, but I saw Kelce. It was just embarrassingly drunk and loutish,
Well, that's one area where I kind of give people an awful lot of grace on that one.
I have some expertise, right? Now, I wouldn't have cared, but fortunately for him, in a way, that was quickly memory hold because something more tragic happened.
Yeah.
Immediately thereafter. And what's interesting about, as we got to watch this in real time, right in front of us, and our local news was inundated with stories about it, as you can imagine. Was the canned response of the media to the shooting.
Did they say it was a white supremacist?
They hinted at that, and
usually you got to go through several people saying that before you get. I mean, you remember the podcast we did on doubt of the benefit?
Yeah, right.
I'm there with everything like this that happens.
Yeah.
I don't even listen for the first 2-3 days.
No, that's why I was glad that we didn't talk about this until we knew more.
Yeah.
I mean, we all think our thoughts immediately, and the thoughts I thought that moment proved to be accurate. I mean, it didn't take a Nostradamus to figure out what had happened. But the media don't go there, right? They go there very reluctantly. So when I was watching local news, which I was watching hoping to get some real information, I was wasting my time.
Oh, yeah.
So their stories broke down along 2 lines. One was the first couple of days, speaking with the survivors. Everyone's a survivor. They have counseling sessions at the universities now for people who are in that crowd. I mean, the actual incident affected about 50 people. And now there's 1 million people claiming PTSD.
I blame wind chill index.
Well, it was a nice day. They didn't even have that as a...
that started it all.
Right. Oh, right.
This hypersensitivity of everyone.
Right.
It's 30 degrees out, but the wind chill index, it's going to feel really bad.
Right. And they do the same thing in the summer, the heat index.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Your car is your barometer, your thermometer. Your cars don't care about how humid it is outside. You leave a car in the sun. That's the only moment you're going to be uncomfortable in your whole day.
It's just such a wussification.
It is
thing.
total. We are being wussified.
So everybody's got PTSD in the whole crowd.
So we're watching the local news, and there they are. I heard these shots. I thought it was a firecracker. Then I heard these shots, and we ran away. This person's like 500 yards from the scene of the crime, but that's all we heard about, other than the spokespeople who went immediately to guns. Right?
Of course.
We need some new laws. We need some, and then they blame. We're in a red state, Missouri.
Right.
In a very blue city, Kansas City, which contributes a wildly, between it and its sister city, St. Louis, a wildly disproportionate share of the state's murders, right?
Yeah.
And then they go to the governor and they say, you know, Missouri is number 5 in gun homicides. What are you going to do about it? You know, what he should say is, well, we're going to shut down St. Louis, Kansas City. We're going to give St. Louis to Illinois and give Kansas City to Kansas, and
Well, they're trying to secede. Let's let them.
right, yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
So that was the 2 lines of thought. Meanwhile, on the internet, people were actually talking about what happened, right?
Uh-huh.
Because everyone who's paying any attention to urban news had a very good sense of what happened, right?
Well, here's the deal, Jack. You can't watch any of the mass media or the papers for anything.
Right.
You got to go to like neighborhood.com or Tony's Kansas City.
Right.
You're going to get that's replaced all this.
You know who was leading the reporting, the real reporting, was TMZ.
Really?
Yeah, which was like an entertainment site out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
The TMZ refers to 30 Mile Zone, which is the area around Los Angeles, or initially. They were showing on day one photos of the shooters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Video frame stills and speculating as to who did what, Meanwhile, our local media would talk about anything but, right?
Yeah.
Anything but. And then we have a black mayor, whom I endorsed when he first ran in 2019. Fooled me once. And
people still talk about you behind your back on that one.
I know I've been mocked and humiliated for that. And deservedly. But I had a choice between him and the openly gay female, right? Who was so woke.
I don't remember.
She was woker than he was at that time.
Okay.
I forgot to, but.
Well, woke trumps it all. We can't tolerate woke.
But so I figured that since he's black, he could at least stand up and say something when an incident like this happened. Yeah. No, he could take a knee. That's what he could do,
Right.
But when he gets up and says, in Kansas City, we're not used to incidents like this. And I just shouted at my TV set, hey, Mayor, 3 weeks ago, we had an incident exactly like this at Crown Center, another big entertainment venue, right? In fact, we have incidents like this virtually every weekend in some entertainment venue or another, screwing that whole place up, driving traffic out of town into the suburbs, the distant suburbs, where people now go to eat and recreate and dine and whatnot, because you can't even stand up and say what's wrong.
Well, the only time you don't hear about it unless it can be a white supremacist or something.
Right. Some angle like that.
Yeah.
Or some gun angle or,
yeah.
But in this case, so they floundered around for a couple of days before anyone knew who the suspects were or what the demographic was or what the dynamic was. And now they're kind of in this zombie zone where they don't know quite what to say. So but there was a fascinating interview on Friday, 2 days after the shooting, with Ann Coulter and Bill Maher, with Van Jones was on. Did you see this by any chance?
No. And I haven't seen Ann Coulter for months.
No, she's been keeping a low profile.
Really low.
She looked good. She's sitting next to Bill Maher. Van Jones is on the other side, is black.
Commie.
Yeah, commie, wears glasses, makes him look like an intellectual.
He borrowed him from that Harvard gal.
Yeah, Claudine Gay. And he has a comparable haircut to hers. He's actually a little less hair than she does. So Bill Maher, he starts talking about the Kansas shooting. This is on Friday night, 2.5 days after the incident. Right?
Okay.
And he says, well, of course, we have no idea who did it. And Ann Coulter just rolls her eyes. We know, she says, right? And then he and Van Jones look at each other like, uh-oh, she just said something you're not supposed to say on like a major TV show. And then Bill said, what do you mean we know? She goes, here's how we know. We know who it's not, She said, if it were white guys, we'd know their names. We'd see their pictures by now. There'd be headlines, white men shoot people, and which they do. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And so she goes, since they haven't said who it's not, if it's not a black person, it's like an illegal alien or a Muslim, And she knew more than that because she had seen, if you're following a place like TMZ or you're just going on Twitter, you're seeing the pictures. So that's where we stand, right? And this state of total denial, total refusal to face reality. And for the Kansas City boosters, these are the skinny jeans crowd, the kind who make all the decisions about the future of Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. They've got the cool square glasses and the skinny jeans and kind of a architect-looking sport coat. Yeah, I know.
And then
those
they wear
guys.
like white sneakers, just to
Oh,
show.
yeah, just to
show
show
what
they're
rebels
not.
they are.
I'm a rebel. I don't wear hard shoes.
Except that all the other skinny jeans guys are wearing,
Yeah.
white shoes or like Bozo the Clown shoes or some sort. And they've created a whole world
So
for themselves. So what they give themselves are bicycle lanes that no one wants to pay
those
for.
assholes.
All these amenities like that no one could ever possibly want or use. And now the amenity they want to give themselves, though, is a downtown baseball stadium, right?
Yeah.
That way, in their carless little worlds, they don't have to, borrow a car or bug a friend to take them to a baseball game. They could just take the light rail, another one of their gifts to self, right? A meaningless, useless instrument that we had gotten rid of our trolley cars just a little while ago, and now we had to go light rail. But the timing for this, and on April 2nd, there'll be a ballot in Kansas City in which we're going to pay some extravagant sales tax in Jackson County. It's a county facility to bring the ballpark from its perfect natural location right next to Arrowhead, the football stadium, downtown, right? So we could be like every other city in America.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have light rail like every other city in America.
Mm-hmm.
We have a crappy new airport like every other city in America. We have bicycle lanes like every city in America. And we also have, like every city in America, a downtown that's been midtown that's been despoiled by Visigoths who no one wants to say no to.
Yep.
So where do we go?
Well, you're bitter, Jack.
No, I'm not bitter.
I like that.
They give me.
I like that in a man. I like the cut of your chin.
I like that in a man. You're bitter, Jack. No, I'm not actually, because it gives me fodder, right? I wrote an article a year ago or so on the proposed downtown ballpark, thinking it was too far-fetched an idea ever to get very far. And I said, put it up before the voters, let them decide. And so then I reposted that just right after the shooting. And then I say, okay, this is what a downtown ballpark means, right? Because in the article I used the word thug in the article.
You can't say the T word. We learned that, Jack.
Right.
And you didn't talk about that. I'm surprised. But the mayor of Kansas City did take a bold step. He told the governor of the state of Missouri not to use that T word.
Right. In fact, he called him a thugophobe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Thugophobia is dividing America as it's never been divided before. Right?
Exactly.
So
I didn't mean to get you off track.
thug, by the way, is a word from India, like the Indian thugs, not like Native American thugs. They probably have another word for thug.
Ugh.
A lot of their words rhyme with ugh. But so you told me. So I wrote this article in which I mentioned thugs. I mentioned the thug problem.
Uh-huh.
I said the first shooting downtown, even if it's not lethal, will have the equivalent impact as a 12-game losing streak, right, on its head, right? If it's lethal, you're talking a 30-game losing streak, which the Kansas City Royals are very capable of producing in the last decade or so. And so it seemed prophetic. People were saying, gosh, you wrote that a year ago. Well, yeah, I wasn't banking on that shooting at the Chiefs parade. But although there's unfortunately one fatality, and it's too bad because the woman is a traditional Catholic. She's a fan of Harrison Butker, who's our kicker, and a traditional Catholic himself.
Mom,
yeah,
a couple kids.
Right, yeah.
This absolutely was such a personal tragedy on those, and people didn't talk about that. They talked about don't say thug. That sounds racist.
Right.
Oh, here we are having a nice day for Kansas City, and there's always some punk that's going to ruin it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, it ruined your image of what you wanted to be cool and blah, blah, blah. It's like, man.
No, it was a massive truth injection.
Yeah.
And if it happened, an incident like this happens on the east side of town every weekend, literally. Last year we had 185 homicides, 6 times as many as Omaha, which is the same size as Kansas City, right? That means we have 3 of these every weekend or every week. 3 times 52, even, and then some. In a leap year, we get even more. It's unfortunate. Happened in a leap year, we get an extra month. Happened in Black History Month. Not to put too much of a spin on that one, but it's a reality dosage that was necessary, I think.
Yeah, it was a little wake-up thing. And, people like to hush it up because they, the bullies say that's racist.
Right.
But we had a stadium here. A lot of people watching this podcast probably don't realize we had a Major League Baseball team before the Royals.
I was a baseball fan at the time, and I thought they were a Yankee farm team.
Well, that's what they were, essentially.
The Kansas City Athletics. Yeah. Trading Roger Maris to the Yankees for 5 Mickey Mantle baseball cards.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we were a farm team for them, and then they sucked every year.
Right.
I went to a lot of the games. My dad was in the UPI. Stringer was in the press box and got me in all the time when I was a little kid.
And so you know where the stadium was.
I knew all about it. But here's the deal.
Right.
The stadium was right in the middle of the roughest part of the Kansas City, Missouri ghetto.
Right.
It was at 18th and Brooklyn, right across the street from
Arthur
Bryant's Barbecue. And it was so safe that as a 6-7-year-old boy, my dad would give me $1, and I'd have my baseball glove, and he'd say, "I'll see you at the end of the game.
Right.
You know where the press box is. Come on up." And okay. They'd call the Division of Family Services on somebody if they did that now.
Right.
But it was just as black.
Yeah.
And, in fact, completely situated in an all-black area.
Right.
And it was safe.
They moved to that stadium, the Athletics, Kansas City Athletics. It was the first baseball team. The St. Louis Cardinals are west in Mississippi. First baseball team. It was the furthest west baseball team at the time. So they knew what they were getting into. They moved into essentially an all-black neighborhood in 1955. And why was it safe then and it's not safe 70 years later? Was it because there was no discrimination again? Was there more money then? No. People were poorer. They were more discriminated against. They had harder times and harder lives and real life histories. But they didn't feel the need to go out and shoot everyone, right? They had guns. They could have. Just like in Kansas City on the Kansas side of the state line, everyone I know in Johnson County, and that's a big suburb, has a gun or multiple guns.
Guarantee everybody in KCK has one.
Right. Usually you talk about how many guns you have, they'll say, how many gun lockers do you have, I mean, that's where it begins. And only in the little liberal neighborhoods does no one have guns. But I live in one, which means I'm the self-defense crew for my block. I don't think my neighbors realize that yet. So what happened? We're not allowed to talk about it. Ann Coulter says to Bill Maher, if you're a young black kid, you're 19 times more likely to be shot and killed than a young white kid, right? And they had to acknowledge, and Maher says it, he goes, yeah, and they're doing the shooting too, right? So if you're a parent, and a black parent in one of these neighborhoods, you run the risk not only of losing your child to death or to permanent paralysis or whatever, but to go into prison for the rest of his life, right? So as a result of this incident, I would say at least 4 people will go to prison for a good chunk of time, 10, 15, 30 years. So they're out of the equation. It's an enormously expensive process, right?
Absolutely. And I don't believe that they will serve that time.
I think the juveniles...
I think one of the main reasons is that nobody's getting time.
That's one of the problems. Because the one guy, the older shooter, there are two adults. One is 23, one's 18.
Which we had no idea about that until just a couple days ago.
Yeah, right. For a week, they kept that under wraps. We just took a couple juveniles.
Just kids.
Yeah, being kids. Boys will be, it's odd because my sister texted me that afternoon, that Wednesday afternoon, and she says, the text read, "Are you all right?" So before I responded, I said, "Oh, something must have happened." So I go look it up, blah, blah, blah. And I responded back with that zero information, just the minimal, scant information I could glean in 1 minute on the internet. BOYZ will be BOYZ, right? And, I was right. I'd say it, but it was that obvious, right?
Well, why do you think, Jack, if you were responsible for releasing information to the public, would you want to create the impression that it was juveniles?
Would I want to create that impression?
Because they did.
Yeah, because then you could say that they're just kids and they'll learn and.
You don't have to come up with any names or any pictures.
That's exactly.
Bingo. They hide behind that wall.
They do, right.
This is another false, this is another trick of these criminals in the media.
Right. And Kyle Rittenhouse, if you recall, said, "How about me? How come I'm not a juvenile?" Right. How come my picture is everywhere? Or Nicholas Sandman, right? The kid who was accused of being mean to an Indian guy.
And then they back the camera up and you see the Indians coming at him, boom, 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 bullying him.
16-year-old Nicholas Sandman. Even a better example, someone posted this one. This was really beautiful. And they said, just to your point, Roy, they said they're willing to shame a 9-year-old for wearing face paint at a Chiefs game.
Right.
And they're suppressing the images of these killers, right? And and that was another part of the whole Chiefs saga this year, right? You know that story. This kid shows up at a football game. He's 9 years old.
Oh, yeah, the kid with the painted face, yeah.
Right. So one media outlet, it was a sports outlet, shows the black side of his face only.
Yeah, yeah.
And then tried to make and did. Well, fortunately, the parents are suing this guy, but it was so classic, right? How is that for selective editing? You only show the side of his side. It's like the dark side of the moon, You just show the side of his face that reflects the projection that you want to impose on white supremacists in America, like this 9-year-old with his headdress on, right? And then they had to go, once that didn't pan out, they had to go with the Indian route to justify their hostility towards this cute little kid, right? Who has no idea what's going on. His grandfather is apparently a member of a tribe of some sort,
Well, what'll happen is because of the dynamics in this and who was involved, it'll go quiet very quickly. It'll be memory hold, I believe, as much as possible. And what happens, and here's the danger that I see in this. We can see all the damage it's caused. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that, when you basically we're asking for it by all these things we do, like, treat them with kid gloves, don't let people talk about it, all these things, memory holding it.
Right. Shaming anyone who points out the obvious.
Shaming the governor.
Right.
Chastising him for being a racist.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
For using the word thug.
Yeah. I would have said
worse words.
There's a lot worse words.
Than the T word.
Yeah. So the real danger is, there were probably 950,000 people who weren't inclined to shoot somebody that were out there that day.
Right.
But I'd say probably about 300,000 of them would gladly kick somebody's ass if they were given permission.
Yeah.
And would gladly hang somebody who did what those guys did.
I'd go from 300,000 to 30,000 on the hanging part. But
well, you know what? If you said, this kid or this guy brought an assault rifle into this crowd and shot this young mother and all these children, I'll bet you 300,000 people in that crowd would go, boom.
They would, if given the choice to pull a switch. They wouldn't want to do it extrajudicially, of course. But
what I'm saying is they're asking for frontier justice.
Yeah.
That if people get so frustrated that nobody's hearing them,
right,
all of a sudden we're back to the wild, wild west.
Right.
And that's when people will stop having gangster gunfights in the middle of crowds and shooting people.
Right.
Because they'll watch on TV and everybody, the pearl clutching, then we'll see how upset everybody is, right?
Right.
And then they hanged them. You know? They dragged them through the streets. They kicked their carcass around. They kicked their head like a football. And it's like, that's close.
There's some great examples of that from relatively recent Missouri history. You go back it was probably about 30 years ago now. The incident took place in Skidmore, Missouri.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm not saying it because it was a racial incident. Yeah. It's just it's a violence, and that's how people dealt with it because there was no other way to deal with it. And the Skidmore story's great.
Yeah, what happened in Skidmore, which is a small
McElroy.
town. Right, Rex McElroy, the bully of Nottoway County.
Yeah.
He was, Nottoway County is a small rural county in northwest Missouri, probably about an hour north of Kansas City. And McElroy had been terrorizing his neighbors, burning down their barns, raping their wives or daughters, shooting at people, and getting away with it.
He was just so mean, yeah.
And he had a slick Kansas City lawyer who always managed to get him off. So one incident too many, he goes into a grocery store. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone. And shoots this 80-year-old clerk. Doesn't kill him. Shoots him. A week later, he's back in Skidmore walking around bullying people. And that's when the town people got together. And it's a great example of frontier justice. He goes to a bar with his woman who was under his control, wife or his concubine or something, whom he originally had raped, but got off the rape charge by marrying her. I think that was what happened. About 15 of these guys surround his vehicle. He's shot and killed, and they all just walk away. And no one breaks, right?
No one ever did.
No. And they send the FBI up. And the FBI is saying, we don't really want to solve this, when the FBI were still good guys. And they didn't. And they made an effort of we tried as hard as we could. But they never broke, no one broke. And that was the end of the terror. That was the end of the reign of terror in Skidmore, Missouri.
A buddy of mine was assistant sheriff there. He knows the story.
That's a great story. They made a movie out of it.
They talked to him.
Yeah. It's a good book, good movie. It's called In Broad Daylight. Mm-hmm. It starred Brian Dennehy, who looked the part. I mean, if you remember him, he was...
I was in two films with him.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Was a good guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big, mean-looking guy. Another story out of Kansas City, which was not extrajudicial. It was within the legal process, but it speaks to how justice worked. This is in 70 years ago, in the early 50s. And you probably lived with the legacy of this. That was the kidnapping of Bobby Greenlease. Mm-hmm. And Bobby Greenlease was the son, the 6-year-old son of the big, wealthy Cadillac dealer. Mm-hmm. And he went to a nice little Catholic prep school. His aunt came to pick him up one day. She took Bobby away. It wasn't the aunt. It was a woman. And she and her beau were both came from, nice backgrounds, middle-class backgrounds, both white, etc. They did this in September, and they killed him right away. They were apprehended in October. They were tried in November, and they were executed in December, all within 3 months. Justice was swift and terrible then, and it had an impact, when you saw that happening. But that's before we got involved in our bread and circuses, where we just had to keep people entertained and hope we distract them enough that they don't want to talk about our real problems. So the stadium vote comes up on April 2nd. If you live in Jackson County, I mean, a lot of our international audience, it doesn't really care. I mean, because they have, the people in Stockholm or, Berlin have other concerns. But yet there's an international move to give the skinny jeans people control over your cities, to densify and add density and complexity.
Are they still going to build that dog park over the highway where people's little Boston Terriers can poo-poo?
This is a $300 million park to cover an interstate that dissects downtown. And the reason we're going to have one is because other cities have them.
Okay. Well, we got a Ferris wheel, so I'm good.
Yeah, right. We have that. And speaking of bread and circuses. And yet, because I wrote about the $300 million dog park, I'm thinking, I walk a lot of days through Penn Valley Park, which is a beautiful park.
I see you fishing down there in those little hidden ponds all the time.
But it's been left to myself, some illegal aliens, and otherwise insane homeless people. We're the only people who use it. And so consequently, it's just strewn with garbage. I mean, it's like you were in Calcutta or something, the level of trash that's piling up.
Do you still go up there to that Liberty Memorial and drive around and around all the time?
No, I don't do that. I used to do that before I had my conversion therapy.
Okay.
Before it was outlawed in California.
All right.
That was a bad place. When I was walking through there, you see things sometimes you really don't ever want to see, Come on, guys, go into the woods, right? One time, this is just...
that's a deal with all those phallic monuments
Liberty
all over.
Memorial. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's talking about we have a thing called the Liberty Memorial, which was built right after World War I.
Big obelisk.
And now it's like the nation's leading World War I museum. But it does, I guess it attracts that crowd. One day, and they're busy up there. Mm-hmm. One day I'm walking through the park, and there's a path that goes into like these deep woods. Mm-hmm. And it's just a little path that comes out, and I know there's people going there all the time. Well, I said, I saw these two deer come running down the path out of that park. And I said, boy, that must have killed a lot of hard-ons. It's a couple of deer running.
Yeah, that's a killer. That's a
Buzz
mood killer.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
But no, so I know what the parks happen to parks downtown, right?
Yeah.
They become natural attractions for the homeless, for illegal aliens, for gay cruisers, and so we're going to spend $300 million so they have a better place to do their stuff, No, but again, it was all and in the architectural plans for the ballpark, which by the way wipes out whole neighborhoods. It's all eminent domain, right? Shops, historic places, buildings, everything, churches, right?
Which I might tell you that when I look at that, I see evil because I know that was one of the few organically developed neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That they didn't get their mitts on.
Right.
The whole downtown crowd, as soon as there is a few green sprouts of any organic development, they immediately come in with eminent domain, and this is a blighted neighborhood, and this is this, and somebody get UMB and Commerce on the phone. We got some deals we got to put together, and we got, somebody get the architects with the skinny pants and the square glasses and the Nehru jackets in here because we got to do something with this that's ours. They take it all over. They ruin everything. But go ahead.
And what our friends on the left forget is that it was their Supreme Court justices who authorized. Is it Kelso? Was that the decision? Or was that a Connecticut? Something like that. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, where they said that private developers can be granted the authority to eminent domain a neighborhood. Right?
Oh, yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
And in that case.
That was a long time ago.
Maybe 20 years. It was a 5-4 decision. The libs went for it. The conservatives were against it.
Really pissed me off.
And that development never came to fruition. They leveled everything, but the development never got built. And if you, just for historical purposes, you want to put this in perspective, those of you who champion eminent domain, that's what the Trail of Tears was. It was just an eminent domain job. It really was.
Yeah.
They
And
got paid.
personally for me, that was horrible because Ray's playpen got torn down.
Was that the Trail? The original Ray's playpen and the Cherokee Nation, the first one back in...
Well, no, the one on Maine.
Oh, more recently. I thought there was...
I think that actually that decision impacted Ray's playpen.
Oh, right, because they tore that down
They tore it all down.
for the Home Depot.
For the Home Depot
Costco.
and all that stuff. And,
Right.
and
I thought you meant the original Ray's playpen and deep in the heart
in the
Cherokee.
Indian Territory.
In the Indian Territory. It's called, Geronimo's playpen back then. No, but that's what it was. They decided
Eminent domain.
It was, and they paid them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have some
Beads.
Yeah, right. Or wampum.
Yeah.
No, actually, they paid him money. They paid him not an unfair price necessarily for what that real estate was kind of worth, and then they shoved them. Then they had to go move. Actually, even provided them a place to go. It wasn't.
But think about that assessed value for where your grandparents and you grew up and you raised your kids. You knew every blade of grass and every person and all the shopkeepers, and they go, "Well, your house is worth $180,000. Here you go, get out."
Right. Like they did it for the legends out in KCK. In my case, the eminent domain me both out of the house where I grew up from ages 7 to 17, 5 to 17, but also the house where I lived from 0 to 5.
You got to write a book about that.
Well, the National Archive Foundation is kind of worried about this because they don't know where to put my boyhood home and museum. So, I don't have any homes to build a boyhood home and museum. So we'll have to look around. It's just...
They might have to just let that one go.
They may have to put that further down on their list, their to-do list.
You could get a little sign like the one that they have down where the old ballpark was on Brooklyn.
Right.
There's that Parade Park or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And there's a park, and it said this is where the stadium was.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's cool.
Or they do in London, where you see them, they don't tear down buildings, but they'll put plaques on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
This is where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, blah, blah, blah. Or, Oscar Wilde lived here and did other things here. It may just come to that. I may have to give up on I was hoping to do just like the Obamas, like a $600 million library complex. But that's probably not going to come to pass, at least in my lifetime. Unless people discover Upstream in the very near future.
They better get busy. We got to ask our friends to start sharing this.
Yes, we do. We have to get more aggressive with it.
Yeah.
Because we get such great reviews, but we're not being seen as widely as we should be seen. So if you are watching this, please share it.
Don't send us money.
Yeah, right. We don't need your money.
Just share it.
Now, the trick is, which I've learned, is that, at least for me, and I suppose for a lot of other people, I get shadow banned on Facebook. So if I post this show, if I just post a direct link and say, "Oh, here's Upstream, blah, blah, blah," I'll get 2 or 3 likes, right? So what I have to do is I have to post the image from Upstream.
Right.
And then I have to post a link in the comment section below to fool Mr. Al Gore Itham, who's screwing with me. And so I would recommend other people do that. Put it in the comment section if need be, because it's odd how intrusive the arm of the censorship industrial complex is. That they would think us worthy of censorship, I suppose it's a compliment, but...
They're pretty good. They work on that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It would be nice, though, if people did share us a little bit more and talk about it, tell people where to find it and stuff.
Right, and which was an interesting exception was when I reposted this article from Heartlander, which is an online publication that I'd written a year ago about the ballpark. They didn't shadow ban it. I got hundreds of comments.
Huh.
Usually I'll get like 3 likes and 1 comment,
Right.
when it's banned. There's only a half dozen people. My sister gets to see it, some other guys. and that's you. So when they shadow ban it, you see it on your news feed. You think it's going out there, but then when you see the response, you know that it's not. So I did one. I showed a picture of an early picture of two of our young shooters, right? And I made some comment about it, but I didn't have a link. So usually I figured I'd get by the censors. I got 20 likes in 15 minutes, froze right then, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was the case with Twitter for me. Well, it used to happen. I just gave up on it.
well, Twitter has been liberated for the most part.
but I'm gone. I mean, I am already gone.
Yeah. Well, come on back. Start posting your stuff on Twitter. And also, you can tell people about the wonders of Real Media, who host us here in Overland Park at their wonderful facility. And I know there's other people coming here doing podcasts, and they look how they make us look good, right?
Jack, I was going to say, you look so tanned and fit. I thought you were Jack LaLanne.
I was. If you saw me pulling a boat with my teeth through the parking lot outside, you'd know, but no, not
Took
quite.
10 years off of you, man.
It did. You too. You looked you like you just came off the golf course, you know?
Yeah.
Where I know you would have been today, except for the sacrifice you made to be here today.
That's right, but there is always tomorrow.
It's worth it. So, hey, we'll see you all next week, and thanks for listening, and you are watching Upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Good day.